Welcome, Albena.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for two very interesting seminars on the subject 1 year with the UN Sustainability Development Goals, Opportunities for Business. We want to take this opportunity to hear from you what has been achieved so far. Please tell our audience.
Thank you very much, Mia, and thank you for inviting me to these seminars. I think this is very important what's happening in Sweden. I think 1 year after the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals were launched. A lot has happened in some countries. A lot is still happening in other countries. Some countries are more advanced than others. Some countries know more about the SDG than others. But I think one very important thing is that a lot of governments, I would say all governments, have understood that the role of the private sector in achieving the SDGs is crucial. And the role of the private sector, both in terms of financing, but also in terms of expertise, capabilities to implement, has been achieved. People are aware of that, which was not the case only 2-3 years ago.
So can you tell us a bit about the new type of partnerships and instruments that are developing in order to actually make this happen in reality?
Yeah, so people are understanding that we can only achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in partnership. It is not only the public sector or the private sector. It is not only official development assistance or aid money or only private investments. It is both. And partnerships are happening and new structures, new financial structures are being developed whereby public money can catalyze private investment for development, can leverage private investment for development. $1 of public money can be leveraged to attract in private investment of between $8 to $10 or even $20, depending on project, country and sector, and depending on how we can de-risk those investments for private investors.
Can you give us one example?
I can give you one example because we're in Sweden. I'm going to give you the Swedish example, or where Sweden has worked very closely for the past 2 years with IFC, the International Finance Corporation, and where the project was signed and launched officially on the 5th of October in Washington, D.C. And the MCPP, the Managed Co-Lending Portfolio Program, is a program whereby MCPP, IFC, offers its diversified portfolio of bankable infrastructure projects to investors, be it institutional or insurance companies or other investors who come in, and IFC manages those funds and those investments on their behalf and uses those funds to invest in a diversified portfolio of projects that have been developed, due diligence has been applied, environmental social governance principles have been applied, and so forth and so on. So IFC, because of our knowledge in emerging markets, because of our field presence in emerging markets, can assess risks and thereby take away that responsibility from investors to go out and try to assess the risk in emerging markets themselves. So it facilitates and by this also mitigates the risk for private investors by offering them our diversified portfolio.
When you look and compare with the development of the Millennium Development Goals and those goals that we have now up to 2030, what is the main difference? What is it that would make them more applicable to the business sector? What is different?
Well, I think there's a few crucial differences. Number one, the Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs, were only applicable to developing countries. The SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, are for everybody. Developed, middle income, developing, emerging, frontier, anything. Therefore, all countries and 193 heads of government, heads of state signed up to the Sustainable Development Goals. So they're the global development agenda for the world up until 2030, and I would even say beyond, because if we get the basics right now, the beyond 2030 will be much easier. And to be quite honest, we don't have another option. Either we do the SDGs as the global development agenda, we change the way we invest, we look at local capital markets in developing countries, in emerging economies. We don't have a plan B. Either we fulfill the SDG agenda or we are not guaranteeing the sustainability of our way of life, I would say.
So with those words, I thank you very much for coming to us, Albena. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. Thanks very much.